Good evening, New.
Good evening, Eric.
Mhm.
Hey Eric, it's Alec. How's it going?
Are you hiding under the city logo or where are you?
Hold on. I have to change my name too.
Okay. I don't know if it's feasible to share screen so I can just do a test run putting up our presentation.
Oh yeah, sure, go for it.
I always screw it up, so I need to figure it out. Were you unable to hear me?
No, I can hear you, but I saw the share
No,
screen. It
no.
worked well.
No, I know, but during the presentation, could you hear me?
No,
Okay, let me try that again.
yeah, try again.
Can you hear me now?
Oh,
Hello?
yep, that
Oh.
works.
Okay, that's good. All right, I got it.
Evening, Councilmember Foley. Welcome in. Hello, Councilmember. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
How's it going, Alec from Planning? How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good, thanks. We'll give it a few more minutes, and then I'll kick it off, and then I'll let you say your piece.
Okay.
Sound good?
I won't have much to say, Alec.
No problem. Just want you to introduce yourself. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Glad to be here.
Alec, I see Brad Dickinson in the
Yep,
attendees list.
I got him. Hold on here. Is there anybody else, Eric, that I need to bring over?
Why don't we bring over Rico? He's our engineer, just in case there's a question, technical
Okay.
question.
Got him.
Brad, is there anyone else in the attendee list that we want on the panelists, just in case there's a technical question?
Yeah, there'll be Seraphin.
Sorry, Brad, you broke up a little bit. Can you say that name again?
Seraphin. She's our architect.
That's right.
How do I spell that?
I don't see her. I don't see her yet.
Okay. Well, I know we have a lot of folks here, so I want to make sure we make the best of our time. So I'll get started, Eric, and I'll bring her over if I see her.
I do see Kai. So let's bring him over.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh, gotcha. I see Kai. Okay. Yep. Yeah. Okay.
Let's roll.
All right. Let's do it. Evening, everybody. My name is Alec Atienza. I'm the planning project manager with the city's planning division. I just want to let everybody know that for anybody on the attendees side, you're going to be placed on mute until we open up the meeting for public comment. And then secondly, this meeting is being recorded. And then lastly, I want to make sure everybody understands that this is a community meeting. It is not a public hearing. So with that, I'd like to kick it off and introduce Councilmember Foley.
Thank you, Alec, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to this presentation of the proposed development on Union Avenue. I wanted to welcome everybody, to say hello, and to introduce what my role will be. I will be seeing the presentation pretty much for the first time, just along with you. I have had some basic information, but not much greater information than you have. So I look forward to what everyone has to say, the developer has to say. Also, I am very much interested in what you, the neighbors and the community, have to say about this development. I have been in the neighborhood. I was just there yesterday, actually, driving around, walking around, and I have a pretty good idea of the scope and all the small businesses there. So I look forward to hearing what everyone has to say, and we'll take that into consideration and know that what you say is important to me, and my job will be to work out the best deal possible for the community. With that, I turn it back to you, Alec.
Thank you, council member. So next, I just want to go over to the agenda for the night. So after introductions, going to give a brief overview of the planning process and what that entails on our end for staff. And then I'm going to kick it off to the applicant. Representing the applicant tonight is Eric Schoenauer on the screen here. He'll be providing the presentation of the project itself. And then the bulk of the time we're going to reserve for open forum. We want to hear what you have to say. Any questions you might have, we will try to answer those. Note that if we can't get to all of the questions or comments tonight, I do have my contact information at the end of these slides, and I will try to answer any questions that we can't answer in the hour. So let's dive right into it. Just so everybody is aware of the context where this project is located, it's at the corner of Union and South Bascom. It actually doesn't have frontage on Bascom though, only has frontage on Union and Eldon Drive here, a small piece. The smaller shopping center that's located right on Bascom at 2590 South Bascom is not a part of this project. And the site is within a designated growth area known as the South Bascom South Urban Village. It has a general plan designation of neighborhood community commercial and is located in the commercial pedestrian zoning district. In terms of the project itself and the applications, the applicant submitted this project on November 17th, 2022. This is a special use permit. The file number is SP22-031. The special use permit allows the demolition of an existing shopping center, the Maplewood Plaza Shopping Center, the removal of 8 non-ordinance sized trees, and the construction of a 100% affordable 6-story mixed-use development. And that would include retail space as well as 260 multifamily residential units. Note, so earlier in this presentation, I mentioned that this is actually a commercially designated site. So many of you be wondering why residential would be allowed. Well, that is due to General Plan Policy IP 5.12. And that allows the construction of 100% deed restricted affordable housing for households earning 80% area median income or less. The applicant has also applied under the state density bonus law. So I listed the general plan policy as well as the state density bonus law here. The state density bonus law allows affordable housing projects to increase residential density, reduce parking, as well as apply for concessions and waivers to waive certain development standards. And if there are any questions on any of these processes, I'm happy to go into greater detail, but for the basis of this meeting tonight, I just want to make sure everybody understands that these are the applications the applicant is applying under. And I'm happy to go into greater detail later on. So in terms of the project review process, so at this stage, this project has gone through 1 round of review by city staff. The project is reviewed by myself and the planning division on the development review team. We also have staff from the Department of Public Works, Department of Transportation, Fire, Building, Environmental Services, Environmental Review. We all review the project for consistency with any applicable standards, codes, and policies. In addition to that, we also have sort of the second component, which is the environmental review of the process. Many of you may have heard of CEQA. It's known as the California Environmental Quality Act. So at this stage, the project is expected to qualify for what's known as an infill exemption under CEQA. And we do have environmental planning staff on the call tonight. We have Nguyen and Cassandra Vandersweep. They're here to answer any questions you might have on the environmental review portion of the project. But ultimately, what occurs after project review is completed, and that requires complete project review as well as environmental review, this project will go to what's called a director's hearing. Director's hearings are public hearings where projects are brought before a planning director and they're voted on by the planning director. Anybody who received a notice for the meeting tonight, you would also be receiving a notice for that hearing. We do not have a date for that yet. As I said, we are very early on in this process, but ultimately, if you did not receive a notice, please reach out to me. I have my contact info at the end of these slides to make sure you receive a notice. As well, anybody who's sent me emails or anything about this project, I've added you to the list already, so you can be, kept up to date on any future meetings and any future hearings. So with that, I've talked enough. I want to kick it off to Eric. Eric, You can go ahead and provide the project itself.
If we could do share screen, please.
Do you have
Okay,
sharing capability?
hold on. There appears to be a problem, so hold on one sec. Hold on. Okay, can you see that and can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, excellent. So thank you, Alec. Good evening. My name is Eric Schoenauer, and I am a consultant that represents the developer on this project. And along with me is Brad Dickinson, who is the developer, and our designers, Kai and Seraphin. So I will be speaking on behalf of the project, but they are here to listen to all of your questions and comments tonight. So we appreciate everyone taking the time to come out. And one of the core questions is for neighbors, I know, is, well, why is housing being built, proposed to be built at this location? And the reason is this: the city of San Jose and the Bay Area are facing a significant housing shortage. Because of that, both city policy and state law strongly encourage and require the production of more housing. In fact, the state of California has now determined that San Jose must produce over the next 8 years an additional 62,200 residential units overall citywide. And to put that in perspective, that's 7,700. So that's 7,700 new housing units per year for the next 8 years. But San Jose in the last 10 years has only produced 2,755 units per year. So San Jose must, under state law, increase housing production 3 times the amount that they've produced in the last decade. And when it comes to affordable housing, San Jose, under state law, must increase affordable housing production 8 times over what they've been producing in the last decade, so that they can get to the point of producing 2,972 low-income units per year over the next 8 years. So because of the housing shortage and because of state law, the city must find new locations for the production of housing to keep our city economy going and to help reduce rents, reduce housing prices, and reduce homelessness in our community. So to get on to the specific project, the development that we're proposing will have a total of 260 residential units. That is made up of 112 studio units, 68 two-bedroom units, and 80 three-bedroom units. This building has quite a few larger units, 3-bedroom and 2-bedroom, which means it will be conducive to housing families. The development has 161 parking spaces in the lower podium level, which I will show you in a moment. And the building itself is 5 stories of residential building over 1 story of parking podium for a total of 6 stories. The height of the building, the predominant height of the building, is 76 feet tall, even though the city's general plan and zoning code allow 120 feet. We are building at 76 feet. So this shows you the site plan of the building in the context of the neighborhood. So to the To this side of the building, we have single family homes, and then we have commercial here, public street and commercial here, commercial development on this side. And on Eldon, we have affordable housing, high density housing across the street. This is the site plan at the podium level. And as you can see at the podium level, the residential units are in yellow. You can see them outlined here. And in the middle of the project, there are two outdoor courtyards with recreation and outdoor play areas for the residents who live within the development. A key component of the project is to create a respectful interface here between our building and the single family across the property line. So there are two primary techniques we are using. Number one, we are setting our building back 41 feet away from the property line, which exceeds the setback requirement of 25 feet. So to repeat that, although the building could be 25 feet from the property line, we are setting it back 41 feet against the residential neighbors behind us. The other technique we're using is to create a planting strip along the property line, which you can see along my cursor. And we are proposing to plant thick bamboo screen. So this will be tall bamboo plants of 25 to 30 feet tall that will create a solid screen between the residential neighbors behind us and our development. While we're on the site plan here, I'll just note that the primary point of access is off Union here, where cars will come in and enter the first level garage at this location. However, there is a secondary access off Eldon at this location. I'll also note that the Eldon setback here actually exceeds the city requirement. City policy would like this building to be closer to Eldon. Because we have a need for a fire lane and transformers and landscaping, we're actually setting the building back further, so it'll have less of a visual impact on Eldon, the residential street. This is the parking level, as I mentioned earlier. So the primary access for the development is here off of Union, and we'll enter the garage here. There are 161 parking spots on this first level. Another primary feature is we want to activate Union Avenue down here by including the building lobby, the building office and business center, the bike room, storage room, and repair room, as well as a community room that will be accessible to both the residents in this building as well as neighbors and organizations in the surrounding community, with the goal of creating a visually attractive and active street frontage on Union. This is a repeat of the unit layouts on each floor, floors 2 through 6 above the podium. And now we have visual images of the project itself. So this view is along Union, and as you can see, here's the community room space, and along this frontage will be the business center, the lobby, the bike room to activate the street. As I mentioned earlier, the building is 6 stories, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5 stories of residential over the first floor of community activation space. This is another image of the building along Union, a straight on view of the building frontage along Union. Another image looking from the corner of Bascom and Union. In the foreground, you have the existing commercial building, which will remain as is, and our new residential building wrapping around it. This is a close-up of the improved sidewalks, street trees, and building activation that will happen along Union. And an image of the same view from the other direction with the building lobby and activation along Union. This is the view of the rear of the property facing the single-family residential homes. So as I mentioned, the distance from the building face to the property line is 41 feet, even though city policy only requires 25 feet. So we've pushed the building away from the single-family homes. In addition, you can see a depiction here of the landscaping that will be planted along the property line to ensure a good screening for the rear yards of the single-family homes adjacent to our development. With regard to the interface with those single-family homes, our project exceeds the citywide design guidelines for new development near single-family homes. So on the right side here is the city defined requirement, which basically says that you have to have the matching setback and then an associated 75-degree daylight plane and keep your building out of that location. So for our site, which is on the left side, you can see that we are exceeding the setback and we are outside of the 75-foot degree line. So we are outside of, we are beyond, we are a greater distance away from the adjacent single-family homes than is required by city policy. And finally, I should have mentioned that our project is an affordable housing development. So all of the units will be in a range of affordability at 80% of the area median income down to 30% of the area median income. What does that mean in lay person's terms? To simplify this, because the dollar amounts vary by unit size and by household size, but roughly, on average, what those numbers mean is household income of roughly $80,000 to $30,000. So these are people working in our community, whether they are retail workers, restaurant workers, nurses, school teachers, who have incomes that are good, but it's very hard to afford housing. This project will provide housing opportunities for local workers in the San Jose community. So with that, we are ready to answer any questions and hear your comments about our project. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. All right, let's get into the public forum. I'm going to share my screen again. Hold on here. Okay. You guys see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, nice. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to open it up to public forum. Supervising planner Laura Miners, see her on the screen there. She's going to be muting and unmuting folks. So for anybody who wants to speak, please raise your hand using the raise hand feature. If you're on the phone, you'll have to hit *9. I don't know if I see anybody ringing in. I see a few. So if you're on the phone, hit *9 if you want to raise your hand to speak. So Laura, go ahead and take it away, and we'll be taking notes on everybody's comments.
All right, thank you. Nima, you are unmuted. Please unmute yourself and talk. Okay, we can come back to her. David Brown, you are unmuted. Please unmute yourself. Oh, David Brown, you are unmuted.
Hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So the first thing I'd like to be able to address is the parking. He said 161 parking spaces. I live in the Vizcaya community across the street, and we have 2 spaces for every unit in the development. That's 196 spots. We also have 45 visitor parking. That's a total of 241 parking spaces for 98 units. And with that, we have parking that's people that go out on the street on Bascom, and you can go out there at night, and there are cars all the way up and down Bascom that cover the street up until Kirtner. The second thing I'd like to talk about is the size of the building, the 6 floors. I went out and I took a picture and I sent it to Alex. Our view of the Eastern Mountains disappears with this building. We can't see anything. We have a beautiful view. We have a community that is suburban. This building belongs downtown. We don't have a building around this like that around here for a reason, because it's an eyesore. The next thing I'd like to talk about is the retail stores. We do not want a 7-Eleven type store there that sells alcohol. You can go down to 2223 South Bascom and take a look at the type of people that hang around there. He also talked about the edict that's being handed down from the state. The people that run this town are local, they're not state. And I can tell you things about Governor Newsom, the way he handled COVID and the rest of it. He's not going to tell me what to do locally, and I will use my finances, my feet, and my phone to unite with other people to get people voted out that destroy our neighborhood. Thank you.
All right, are we responding to him or should we go with more comments?
Next comment.
Okay. Melissa Fletcher, you are unmuted.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that you're exceeding the setback space. I want to acknowledge that. And I also want to say it's not enough. And I agree with David Brown. 6 stories is not acceptable. I think it needs to come down to 3, 4. It's too much. It's too big. We are a family neighborhood here. And like he's on the other side of the street. I understand his view will be gone. We just don't need a building that big here. So what I want to know is action. What can I do as a person living in this neighborhood for over 30 years? We're the second homeowners of our home. We live next door to people that are the original homeowners, many people on this street. I want to know exactly who I need to talk to about cutting this down several floors. 6 floors is not okay. And then the other thing is I know we don't have a voice in the building of this building. I get that. You're building it, whether we want it or not. So I want to know, how long is this build going to take? Because the noise and the dust that is going to cover our homes is going to be horrific. And so are you talking getting it built in a year, in less than a year? And where are all the trucks going to park? So yeah, so how do we get it lowered? Who do I need to talk to? And if you could let us know how long this build is going to take, and, you know, will you be compensating people for dust and noise and trucks up and down our street? How will you handle that? Thank you.
I will respond to the construction duration question. So a building of this scale has a construction duration of roughly 2 years, from demolition, grading, and then building of the new building. So it's roughly a 2-year period. And there are very strict regulations, both local city regulations as well as regional air board regulations, that control how dust has to be controlled, and limiting impacts to neighbors during construction. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Melissa. Thank you, Eric. Next person to talk is G. Birdwell. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you very much. For starters, we did not answer Melissa's question on who do we speak to about getting this to maybe 3 or 2 stories. I too am a resident right behind there. 6 stories is invasive. I would like to know also, what are we doing to vet the people who are coming in? Are they can see right into our yards where our children play. And I want to know, are we going to be aware if they're on Megan's Law, if they are predators, if they are safe people to be in this neighborhood, viewing our children in what we thought was a private yard when we purchased this home. So 2 parts, please answer Melissa's question on who we can speak to about getting this lower. And also, how are you vetting the residents? Thank you.
All right, thank you. The next person to talk is Nora. You are unmuted. Please unmute yourself.
Hello?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, I don't hear you saying anything about, because you said about the setbacks and the people who are nearby, but not on the streets nearby. Like, I live on Dry Creek, and unfortunately it's a throughway from Union to Bascom. And we have talked to you guys repeatedly. We've met with Pam Foley. We've talked to you. It goes in and out, in one ear and out the other, that you do not even mention the intrusion on our street. It'll be a throughway, it'll be noisy, because ours, you know, people will use it as a throughway more and more because of the heavy traffic on Bascom that's going to ensue from this. And I never ever hear you addressing that. Like, we want, you know, speed bumps, we want like a blockage like there is on Dry Creek and Lee. There's a diversion to get through, and there's an obstacle. We want that from Dry Creek to Bascom because of these urbanization, flagrant, nonstop urbanizations that are happening on Bascom. And it's going to affect our, again, very quiet, when we bought the home, very quiet, very upscale, very, you know, sleepy town type place. And you're not even addressing how it's going to affect the neighboring streets. I mean, you're just throwing us to the wolves. You're doing all this building and not even addressing the fallout that we're going to suffer with. And we don't get any reply from you guys when we say we want this, we want that, to protect ourselves. What do you say?
Okay, thank you, Nora. The next person to talk is Patricia Schramm. You are unmuted. Please unmute yourself.
Hi. First question I have for you is, why here? Why in this spot? Why did you pick this spot? The density here is terrible. On Bascom Avenue alone, there's 8 different buildings going up. second thought is the environmental studies. Have you done those yet? On the traffic, on the pollution, on the water, everything that goes along with the environment. Also, number 3, have you compared the prices you're asking for these units to the 3090 South Bascom Avenue building that's going up a half a block away? I bet not. I'm telling you, this building is too big. It needs to be cut down. I agree with all the previous callers on everything that they've said. And I hope to God that this doesn't go through. I'm all for housing people, but please, it's just too much. Besides, the building is ugly. I reserve my time for someone else. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Patricia.
Laura, before we get too far, you think we could double back to some of the questions?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was maybe gonna touch on what Melissa and G Birdwell, I'm not sure what their first name was. I just speaking to height, I want to make something clear about this site and actually basically all of the commercial sites around this. Believe it or not, the maximum height is 120 feet for this site. So not to scare people, but that's the reality of this area. So what they are proposing, 6 stories, I believe, Eric, what's the max height? 74 feet?
Yeah, 76 feet.
76. Yeah, I mean, it's significantly under what is actually allowed in terms of height at this site. I don't know, Eric, could you maybe speak to the vetting process? It's not something that happens at this stage for residents of the future development.
The vetting.
Yeah, one of the neighbors asked a question about, the vetting process for who gets to live where. I mean, my understanding is that, we have fair housing laws that really don't,
Well,
we don't have any control over who can live in certain places at
Yeah,
this
and
stage, at the planning stage.
the people that will live in this building are community members that probably already live and work in our community. The only vetting has to do with their household income. So if they have to meet a certain income level to qualify to live in the units. And as I mentioned, we are going to have a range of allowed incomes from 80% of the area median income, which is roughly $80,000 per household, down to 30% of the area median income, which is roughly $30,000 per household. And so think about the jobs that make those incomes. I mean, it's your restaurant waiter, it's your hotel worker, it's your retail clerk, it's your first year school teacher, it's your nurse. So these are people like anyone else in the neighborhood who are working. But because we have some of the highest housing costs in America, it's a struggle to pay rent in the current economy, and they'd love to have an opportunity for an apartment that costs a little less.
Thanks, Eric. One more note for Nora regarding just a transportation analysis. I don't know if William or Alex are on here. They are. Alex, could you maybe just go through a brief overview of the transportation process and maybe note that Dry Creek is something to consider? I'm not sure how far in scope it goes.
Sure, thanks, Alec. So the transportation analysis is, as part of this project, is currently under review. We are currently reviewing the scope of the transportation analysis, and will definitely include certain streets to be looked at for cut through. And once we have a final scope, we will have the transportation consultant prepare a report that we will review and will be included with the other environmental documents to be released for public review once that is completed.
Thanks, Alex. And then maybe one more, just wanted to address Patricia's comments. Cassandra and New, could you maybe touch on the environmental process?
Yes, hello, Alec, and hi, everyone. My name is Nina Nguyen. I'm the environmental project manager for this proposed mixed-use project. And I want to say that to address Patricia's comment, an environmental impact analysis document that analyzes the potential environmental impacts that would occur from the construction and operation of the project is currently being prepared, and the analysis will include technical reports to demonstrate and document the project compliance with the exemption and exception criteria contained in the relevant SEQA sections. And some of those technical reports would include air quality analysis, greenhouse gas, health risk assessment, biological resources, cultural resources, noise and vibration, and also vibration. And transportation. And once a city and consultant complete their analysis and review of the environmental analysis document, the document and technical studies will be made available for the public. And please feel free to reach out if you would like to be notified when the environmental analysis is available, or if you have any questions. Thank you.
Yeah, and I have news contact at the end of these slides too. So Laura, if you can, next batch of speakers, please.
Sure. The next speaker is Renee and Jonathan Wegner. You are unmuted. Please unmute yourself.
Yes, in addition to the other speakers' concerns, and actually to reiterate a few, 6 stories is too much. It's going to block the view. It's privacy concerns. Our backyard's no longer private. You know, somebody can sit in their 6th-floor apartment and look at our backyard. As far as the state regulations, hey, city council, you work for us, not for the state. You should be calling up the state reps and saying, what are you guys doing pushing this stuff? This is absolute garbage. And also to the city council, are you building one in your neighborhood? You know, you want to push this into our neighborhood. Have you started pushing one in your own neighborhoods? And as far as the transportation issue, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, the timer's not running. Transportation, just to get a familiarity where this was going in the neighborhood, I pulled up Google Maps, and when I signed in and it showed me that there's heavy traffic in the area. And now you want to put in 260 units and only 161 parking spaces. Yeah, it just baffles me how you think this is a good idea. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. The next speaker is Michelle Warzek. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself.
Yes, my name is Michelle. I live in the area just off Union Avenue there. And I agree, traffic is going to be horrendous. Union is pretty busy right now, and you want to put all these units in. Again, you don't have enough parking. If you plan to use public transportation, that's going to make that whole area again very noisy, very congested. Have you thought about the schools? Where are the kids going to go to school? And how's that going to impact the grammar schools that we have there right now in that area? So you need to visit that. I agree. 6 stories, way too large, too big, massive. You're going to end up looking like down on Hamilton Avenue in Bascom with all those, used to be the Premier Shopping Center and all those humongous buildings. Nobody wants to live in a community like that. We are a close-knit community, residential, single-family homes. Single-family homes. If you want to make really low-income housing, forget your commercial space in that building, knock that building down, and just make your studio units and some, what did you say? I think you said 83 bed units, 112 studio units, and I forget you have another figure, So if you really want to make it, forget the commercial. Once you're putting that in, the people that have businesses there now are not going to be able to afford it. We don't need any liquor stores. We don't need any more fast food. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Michelle. The next person to speak is Phil Pappenfuss. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, everyone who's spoken so far. I especially appreciate the comments from David Brown, Melissa Fletcher, and Jonathan Wagner. Those are very, very great points that they brought up and really reflect my thoughts as well. But as some additional comments, again, I'm Phil Pappenfuss. My wife and I moved to Cambrian Park over 21 years ago before our first child was born. We love the neighborhood and the people we've met over the years. We understand that California is requiring each major city to build new housing, but I think Cambrian Park is already doing its part with the 6-story Cambrian Park Plaza that will be developed. We don't want to have more residents move to our neighborhood than our infrastructure or our roads can handle. In the Maplewood Plaza, there's currently no housing, just retail. We think that adding 260 housing units is too many, and that 6-story buildings are too tall for our neighborhood that's currently dominated by modestly sized single-story homes. I'm in the early stages of organizing a group to oppose this development based on the current plans. Again, my name's Phil Pappenfuss. If you agree with me and also oppose a development this large, I'd like to hear your comments. I'll be posting my own comments on the Nextdoor website. Thanks to several of my friends who I've sent messages to who've responded and expressed their support. If you disagree with me and think this development is positive for our neighborhood, I'd also like to hear from you. If I'm in the minority and most people want this development, then I'll drop my own opposition. But if most people agree, then we shouldn't allow our city to force changes in our neighborhood that we don't want. If enough of us speak up, we can stop this development with its current plans.
Thank you, Phil. Do you want to go to the next speaker, or do you want to address some of these comments? Eric?
I think the only comment that maybe we could address is regarding the schools. So all developers are required to pay school impact fees at the building permit stage. So not at the planning stage, but if they do come in to actually construct the project, they will be required to pay school impact fees. And I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, thanks, Alec. The next speaker is Dan, D-A-A-N, Van Schoenveld. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, I just wanted to echo the previous speaker's comments. Just fully agree with all of them, actually. So loss of privacy, loss of property value. Why in this neighborhood again? Because there's already affordable housing at the Guitar Showcase location. The building is being put up there, and then there's Cambrian Park. Then there are the buildings north of Hamilton, also on Bascom. It's all in this neighborhood. Why is that? But my question is, going back to the very first question, actually, who should we talk to? When can we have a real two-way conversation with the city and the developers? Because a couple of Zoom calls where we've got 30 minutes and 2 minutes each, that's just not sufficient. A lot of people cannot attend these calls. So who can we talk to? And I'll give my 1 minute back for answers to that question.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Pam, I have a question for you. What do you think about giving this group of this community group the contact information for the Friends of Cambrian Park Plaza. They went through some of the same things, and they have a lot of information that they might be able to share.
Laura, that's fine, but anyone on this call should feel free to contact my office. We're happy to meet with any of the neighbors to discuss what your concerns are. And I am sitting here taking copious notes on what each one of you are saying in regards to the development and your concerns about the development. And my role is going to be to listen to what the neighbors have to say and sit down with the developer, Brad Dickinson, who's right here, and he's making the same notes, I'm sure, and having a conversation about the best way to mitigate your concerns. So anyone here, we're happy to meet with them. We can coordinate a group meeting if you'd like, and figure out how we're going to do that. But know that I am listening, that who you can talk to is the person who's sitting right here, listening to you. I have a staff member here as well, Kyle Lavaroni, who works on housing with me. And we're listening and making notes of your concerns, and we'll have conversations down the line. But if you want to have a group meeting, I'm happy to do that too. We've done that many times before in all of our developments, including Cambrian Park Plaza. We worked on that project for 5 years. We met with various people and groups, and 1 or 2 people or larger groups. It really doesn't matter. That's our role, is to listen and try to make changes as we can, or influence changes. Let me put it that way.
I'll just offer myself up as well. I mean, I've put my contact info at the end of the slides here, but you know, I've spoken with a lot of you already, either phone or email, and absolutely willing to meet with anybody who wants to discuss further. I can help you understand the planning process, and arm you with knowledge. That's all I can do.
Great. Thank you, Pam, and thank you, Alec. The next speaker is Lalo Mendez. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you. Good evening, folks. This is Lalo Mendez, and I work for Catalyze SV. We are a member-driven organization that is based in San Jose, and we focus in supporting the creation of vibrant urban spaces throughout Silicon Valley. Some of our members' priorities include buildings that benefit tenants, the surrounding community, access to transportation, and robust sustainability features. We've actually worked with this applicant before when they presented a project to our members back in 2022, and our members really liked it. It was actually one of the highest scoring projects we've ever had in the past 5 years since we've been assessing and evaluating proposals. So hoping this project is just as good, and very happy to see more affordable homes being proposed, especially 3 bedrooms, which are desperately needed to accommodate working families. There is a need for housing access to support grocery workers, to support the teachers that teach our children, and childcare workers. So very excited to see more affordable homes coming to the area. I yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Lalo. The next person to speak is James Eggers. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you very much. The first thing I would like to say is thank you to Councilmember Foley and the staff for providing this opportunity. I am James Eggers. I'm on the Cambrian Community Council, and I'm also the Sierra Club Loma Prieta chapter director that has 20,000 members, supporters in San Jose. The first thing I would like to ask is, Eric mentioned studios, 2 and 3 bedrooms. Maybe I missed it, but are there also plans for 1 bedrooms? Second, why a curtain of bamboo, which is an aggressive invasive plant? Why not instead use native plants? Second, why is there no environmental landscaping along the street fronts where people will need to actually pass most often and also stand and wait for public transportation? 4, why are will all the trees be appropriate native species, which will not only reduce water usage, but be better for encouraging local wildlife. Number 5, to increase support of bordering residential property owners, has there been a consideration to provide local native plants for screening on their properties that border the new property? Number 6, is there a plan to increase public transportation for this site? Number 7, will the park fees be fully paid, and if so, where will be those parks? And finally, we certainly support affordable housing, but we would prefer it in mixed housing communities. Thank you very much.
So I can answer some of those questions. With regard to the screening landscaping with the residential neighbors, we're open to suggestions on the most effective screening landscaping. We would, if our adjacent neighbors have recommendations of what they'd like to see better, we're happy to consider that. We think that a bamboo hedge would be the most effective visual screen, and bamboo hedges can be planted in solid planters where there is no invasion of the species into other areas. But we're very open to working with our adjacent neighbors on the best visual screening for that rear landscaping. With regard to the pedestrian sidewalk area, the city dictates what kind of street trees get planted along the street. So we will plant whatever trees the city arborist tells us to plant along Union and along Eldon. Let's see, what was the other? Alec, do you remember what the other question?
Parks fees?
Oh, park, yeah. So yes, the development will pay park impact fees per the city ordinance, and those funds go to the city's park fund, and the city council decides where they get spent to either improve existing parks or create new parks. Were there any other questions I can answer?
Can I add something about the parks? Actually, the development, the park fees will be staying actually in District 9, and we'll be able to utilize those at our local parks in District 9. Just want everyone to be aware of that.
Okay, great. Thank you, Eric, and thank you, Pam. I see we have 5 more minutes left, so we'll take 1 or 2 more callers. Sharon Eichler, you have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I just wanted to say that I'm echoing everything that everybody says here. I'm strongly opposed this project. It's too high. It's in the incorrect location. However, the biggest, I think, devastating issue is the actual parking spaces. Living in California without a car is unbearable. So I'm expecting everyone that will own any one of those units will have at least 1 car. Okay, parking spaces as it now is unbearable. Adding another 260 units with only 160 parking space is actually going to devastate the entire area, not just this neighborhood. Okay, people are going to park as far as in Lee Avenue or even in Pune Yard, just to get to their homes. So it's also devastating the business owners that are going to have a shop there. Where other customers are going to park? You know, they're not going to have any just walk-ins, no somebody that comes and parks and gets into the shop. So in a nutshell, I think it's going to be devastating for the entire area, not just this neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more caller.
Laura, I'm just wondering, maybe Eric and Councilmember Foley and Brad, are you okay with maybe staying a little longer? Get a few more people?
We'll stay as long as you all like.
Yeah.
Councilmember, are you okay with that?
I'm fine too.
No other
I'd actually
engagements?
like to hear
All right.
whoever, if you all are available. I recognize that city staff are here, so if you're available longer, at least to take calls from people who haven't commented yet would be
Yeah,
great.
that's what I was thinking. If Laura, if you're okay with it,
Yes.
fine, let's keep it rolling.
All right.
Thanks.
Okay, the next caller is Mark D. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you for allowing me to speak. I guess the first off I would say is similar to what had been raised earlier about Zoom is why Zoom. We're not able to really have a conversation or interact with you in any way. So that just seems ludicrous to me to be able to bring up true state of affairs. The second is, I don't know how the state subsidizing the city municipalities is going to do anything but incentivize pushing these projects through and getting the additional funding that they want for these pet projects. So I disagree with them. It's not here to fill the coffer, and I really don't care what the state has to say about it. The site statistics that you claimed earlier about building this will only decrease costs for people to have housing. I'd love to know where you're citing these facts from, because I haven't seen any of those studies that relinquish any of those ideas about building all this high density, low income housing is going to make more affordable housing for people, and the encroachment upon existing residential people that have lived here for decades that are now being imposed upon. And you speak to doing this is in favor of policies and state statistics and rules that are being mandated by the state. That's a very broad brush. It doesn't take into consideration. I understand you're trying to do that with this call, but it's not a forum that allows us to interact at that level and be able to discuss how this is being imposed upon. We already have at least 5 of these projects underway on the Bascom corridor, from a 10-story building up on Southwest Expressway to the ones in my backyard, which are going to be 4-story, and across the street 6-story. And they do impose both noise under construction, dust, and you can stat all the statistics you want about saying that you're going to control this and do that. It does not affect anything. They're here at 7, they leave at 5, and they don't care how much drilling, pounding, or raising dirt that they want to do.
All right, thanks, Mark. You're at time. Anyone want to respond, or should we move on? Okay. The next caller is Sue H. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you for this opportunity. So I have a really easy request for Eric and Brad and for whoever makes these decisions. As you were showing the presentation, you said that the primary entrance into this development was on Union Drive. Union Drive is a major road. It's, a wide thoroughfare. There's lots of room. But then you mentioned there was a secondary entrance or exit that opened right up onto Eldon Drive. So I live on Eldon Drive, and I can tell you that people, because of the congestion at Bascom and Union and Kirtner, people use Eldon Drive as a shortcut. So it's Kirtner, New Jersey, Eldon to Bascom, Bascom, Eldon, back over to Kirtner. So my first question is, why do we need, is there a way to respect the neighborhood on Eldon Drive, which has children playing on the streets, and not encourage traffic through this secondary opening into the unit? That's my first question. And my second question had to do with the parking spaces. I think a lot of people have covered this, but is what I understand from kind of, communities focused more at low income. There seems to be this feeling that that not everyone will have a car, or that, it's not common to have a car, or fewer people will have cars and use mass transit. I think that's a little naive and actually a little condescending to the people who are going to live in that community. Having a car is part of the American dream. Some of these people may be transitioning from being homeless. I believe what I've been told, I don't know personally, but a lot of homeless people live in their cars. So it seems to make this community itself and to serve its residents, you should really address at least one spot per unit, especially for 3-bedroom units that will have multiple people of driver age, assuming or presumably, or as the years goes on, more people of that level. So can you please address the parking situation?
Thank you, Sue.
With regard to the access, as part of the environmental review process, the city's Department of Public Works and Department of Transportation conduct a transportation analysis to determine if the vehicle access in and out of the project is adequate and safe. So we will wait and see the results of that traffic analysis. It's our belief that, as proposed, it is a safe configuration and will work. But ultimately, the city Public Works engineers and Department of Transportation will decide. With regard to parking, the developer plays by the rules and the laws of the city and the state of California. And the current law of the city of San Jose is that the amount of parking required here is 0. 0. Okay, but we believe that a functioning building needs more than 0 parking spots. So we are proposing 161. And we think that that will function well for the residents who will be living in our building. And there were allusions to people being homeless and so forth. As I mentioned, the income levels of people living in this building will range from $30,000 a year to $80,000 a year. That's not homeless. Those are our neighbors working, the grocery clerk, the retail clerk, the restaurant worker, the nurse, the teacher. These are people working in our community, but where housing is very expensive and it's very hard for them to achieve housing and meet all the other needs in life. So these are our neighbors that live in our neighborhood and in our city. And this gives them an opportunity for housing that isn't exorbitant like market rate housing is. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
So Laura, can I just jump in here for a minute?
Yes.
So Eric, just to be clear, there is no supportive housing involved in this. In other words, there's no portion of this that will be newly housed residents with supportive services. This isn't that kind of, this isn't an affordable housing project that has that scope.
This is not homeless supportive housing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pam. Thank you, Eric. The next speaker is Robert Handy. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself. Robert Handy. Okay, we can come back. We can come back to him. The next speaker is Garnetta Annable. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself. Garnetta.
For those that need help, there's a little microphone button at the bottom. Should be at the bottom of your Zoom screen. That's how you mute and unmute. Anybody see that? Garnetta or Robert?
Okay, we'll come back to Garnetta. The next person is Yarden Barr. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself.
Hello, I hope that you can hear me. And
Yes.
I appreciate the city and the developer opening up for hearing us. And I want to reiterate and echo my dear neighbors talking about parking spaces, community, overloading the neighborhoods around. I want to also understand if we are adding all of those new neighbors, if we are adding more congestion to our area, and myself, we are a young family. We recently moved to the Dry Creek neighborhood, and because of the mix, because of the quality of the different qualities of the area. So combining everything, how does the district and the city will show support to us with the taxes and any other financial impacts that we will suffer, right? We want to, the developer wants to help lower the prices. Whether that will happen or not, I don't know. But how does the city and the district will support the involved neighborhoods to lower the burden on us due to the different impacts on our properties, on our life, on the community that already exists here. I will yield the rest of my time.
Thank you, Yarden. The next person to talk is initials PD. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself.
Hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I just want to echo David Brown, Melissa Fletcher, and everybody else who is highly concerned with this building being 6 feet. Alec, you mentioned that the max is much higher than that. Please take a good look around our community. You will see even Craig Gardens, which is across from this development, is only 3 stories. We fought to keep that at 3 stories, and we will do the same with this development. Please look across the street to the residential senior site, which is, I believe, 4 stories. 6 stories is absurd. Also, 6 stories will significantly block our solar panels that the city of San Jose so desires to ensure that this city is environmentally stable. How are you going to ensure that this city can maintain its energy capacity load if this building is going to block all of our solar panels? Second of all, displacement response strategy. What are you doing to impact the businesses that will lose their livelihood with this development? I'm sure the rent at your unit is not going to be affordable for them. How are you going to help those people in need? Lalo from Catalyze San Jose, I understand you're from, affordable housing group, which is great. I don't think you live in this area. So again, I really hope that Councilmember Foley is taking note of all of the concerned residents of this area. 161 parking spaces for 260 units is ridiculous. And then lastly, Eric, your comment about the breakdown being 80% AMI, which is low income, and up to 30% AMI, which is ELI, that's 34,800 as per 2021 area median income through Santa Clara County. Please tell me whether nurses and teachers are making below $35,800. That's absolutely incorrect. We're talking about a whole different vulnerable population. We are talking about people who make up to $34,000. Those are the types of people that are going to need significant case management, permanent supportive housing options. And I would like to know the breakdown of ELI, BLI, and LI. And I really do hope that you start answering these questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So clearly there was a misunderstanding. As I mentioned, the range of affordability in our building is from 80% AMI down to 30% AMI. So that's a range of roughly $30,000 to $80,000 per household. As far as I know, that includes, those are jobs that are minimum wage jobs up to teachers, nurses, and other workers in our community.
Thank you, Eric. The next person to speak is Michael Weiss. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So, yeah, I live in the area. I absolutely welcome more affordable homes for our teachers and other folks to have an opportunity to buy. That said, parking situation, it is unrealistic. I used to live in North San Jose. It was a disaster trying to park, and there was like all of these, right? Like 4, 5, 6 story spots there, and you just can't park on the street. So, yeah, we'll just have to come to terms with that on the environmental study and see what they do to prevent people from parking on Eldon or Cambrian or other local areas. I also wanted to know how many and what type of retail is planned. The existing development is extremely diverse. There's Honduran food, Chinese food, there's a bazaar, there's Mediterranean. It really kind of epitomizes what Cambrian and San Jose is about, right? It's a melting pot. So just to kind of raise all of that, and like, what are we going to put in, like a Jamba Juice and a Starbucks? Like, come on. So I just want to know, like, where are we going with the retail for this area as well? Because it just seems like, putting up a big claustrophobic building it really takes away, right? When you look at the surrounding areas, like everyone says, like, there's nothing above 4 stories here. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael. The next person to speak is Lori McQueen. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I am probably most directly involved because I am right behind the complex with my cement wall. Number one, I'm hoping the cement wall stays. Number two, I would like to know where all the construction parking is going to go. My nephew lives down at Foxworthy and Bascom, where the guitar showcase is, and he probably lives at least a half mile down Foxworthy, and all the construction workers park there all day long. So where is all this construction parking going to go here? That's my one of my main complaints, because I don't feel I have any control over the size of the building or what's going on. We're just getting railroaded, which is not right. I've lived here. My family has lived here for over 65 years. And all of a sudden to have this happening is ridiculous. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. The next person to speak is Kevin Orlando. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. First off, thank you. I'd like to start off for both Brad and Eric, as well as the city members, that I'm sure all of you are aware that there's existing CC&Rs, which includes where this development is being proposed. So my question to both of you is, are you going to be respecting the CC&Rs that are already in place? Secondly, is there going to be a shade study that is going to be conducted? As someone else mentioned, I think it was PD earlier, we also have solar panels, and being one of the first homes that are on Eldon that pretty much is going to be right next to this development, the solar panel investment that we made is basically going to be a wasted investment. And again, trying to be renewable, that just goes out the door. So I'm wondering, what is the developer and or city going to do for that particular issue? Also, Pam Foley, I know you mentioned in the beginning that you had walked around the area and around the neighborhood, and as others have mentioned, there is not enough parking. There are 20 homes on Eldon Drive, and between Craig Gardens currently and the residents there that are parking along the street, and the fact that there's 260 units for only 160 parking spots, there's going to be no parking anywhere on Eldon, which really becomes an inconvenience and congestion for us neighbors who have been living here for years. Also, why here? I know others have asked this question as well. I mean, this is, you're tearing down a structure of restaurants when there are empty, large structures in downtown San Jose, businesses moving out. Why can't a affordable housing complex be put in one of these empty structures versus ripping something down just to build back up and cram more people in this space? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Next speaker is Rick McLeod. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm also here to comment on the CC&Rs, the covenants, conditions, and restrictions that cover a portion of this property. And that portion that they cover is reserved only for commercial use only, not residential. And some of those lots also have different setbacks and other requirements. When you're buying a piece of property, it's important to thoroughly review the CC&Rs before purchasing the property to make sure that no restrictions exist that would conflict with what you plan to do with the property. AmeriCorps should have received information about them in the seller's disclosures and very likely from the title company in their preliminary title report. The shopping center owners are well aware of these CC&Rs and could pass on this information. And the CC&Rs were last modified in 2007 to allow a small Eldon Glen development. They're also modified in 1999 to allow First Community Housing in the city of San Jose to build the low-income senior citizen housing complex, Craig Gardens, at Eldon and Bascom. First Community Housing was released from the CC&Rs at that time to allow the construction of that senior center. They spent many nights walking the block and having meetings about their proposal with the neighbors. And after that, the remainder of the CC&Rs have remained in full force, including those that restrict a portion of the Maple Leaf Plaza to business commercial use only. When property is purchased under CC&R restrictions, the property owner must abide by those restrictions. These CC&Rs state it shall be lawful for any person owning any real property subject thereto to prosecute any proceedings at law or in equity against the person or persons attempting to violate such covenants and prevent him from doing so or to recover damages afterwards. And we expect AmeriCorps to follow these.
Thanks, Rick. Does the applicant want to address the CC&R issue?
It's being evaluated for validity.
Okay. Thank you. Let's try Garnetta Annabelle again. Garnetta, you've been unmuted.
Did it work?
Yay.
Hey, I'm there. Okay. Yeah, first of all, I'd like to say that I live on Dry Creek Road, and I've known Eric since he was in middle school, I believe.
Hi, Garnetta.
And my concern is that when we worked on the project at 2350 Bascom Avenue, which is just a few blocks north of this particular site, we really were not able, Mr. Davison, Brad, to get very many accommodations, even though the neighbors reached out early and were very concerned about the 6 stories. So if anybody wants to know how much noise and construction and parking is going to be a problem, they can keep an eye there on that project. And that's at 2350. It just was torn down this past week. I'd like to know what the funding is, if it's going to be California state affordable housing and they're looking to San Jose. My opinion is that projects that are along the light rail are where those belong, especially since the parking is not something that the city is currently under control. And I hope that as a body, we take action with our state to change those laws, because most of us have spent our adult lifehood earnings and investing them to be in our homes that are we're now in the neighborhoods that we worked basically a lifetime to achieve. And I don't see that the city has any architectural control that seems to be happening on these? And so I'd like to hear more from Pam as to what are the architectural policies in commission? How do we influence those? And also I'd like to know, how do we get speed bumps and other traffic controls on streets that are being used as cut-throughs? And then lastly, I apologize to Eric. I didn't send my written comments to you. I didn't have your current email address, but Mr. Dickinson received them. Scott, Hughes, and Pam received copies of my comments, as well as Alec. So,
All right, thanks, Garnetta. You're over time. Let's see here. The next speaker is Dan Orlando. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you for taking the call. I have a number of questions here. I really like what David Brown said, but there's a character of a neighborhood, which is very important to many people, not just here, but in any neighborhood. This is disrupting the character of that neighborhood, what people bought into 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 60 years ago. I'd like to know if either Pam Foley or Brad, the owner, how they would feel if that same structure was built next door to their current resident. I'd like to get an answer on tonight's call. The CC&Rs were brought up. It's my understanding when I called First American Title that the city is to comply to CC&Rs that have been established. And if that's the case, Brad, I'd like to hear from you, not that, oh, we're looking into it. If there are CC&Rs, why would you want to look for a loophole and not respect a neighborhood that has something established and has been very successful at maintaining that? Third, the property losses and the loss of solar power. Is Brad or the city or both of you going to compensate people for their property losses? Has anybody done an analysis? I was involved in something over in Aptos. We did a study and it had a significant devaluation if a project like this went through, and we won. The parking, I've done an analysis. If only 130 people overflowed, which we've all heard, that's probably going to be more than that, you'd have 102 shortages of parking spaces on Eldon alone. Where are those people going to park? And then why not the fairgrounds? Why don't you look for properties like the fairgrounds where construction, city cost, everything could be in one area, reduce the cost, the speed, the cost of the contractor, et cetera, would be much more reduced and it would fit a better situation for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, whoops. Next speaker is Carla. You've been unmuted. Please unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to thank everybody on this call and giving us the ability to express our concerns. I am like Lori McQueen. I live right behind this proposed development. And in my experience, in the existing commercial alleyway, we have experienced 2 peeping Toms that happen to go over the fence. We've had people hopping over the fence. And so we had made a deal with the owner of Maplewood that they would put gates on either side to make our neighborhood that much safer. And those gates have been in place and they have been locked. And we have not had any problems with anybody hopping over the fence since then. Also, the privacy aspect in our backyard, we're gonna have like 50 people probably peeking into our backyards. And let me tell you something, that is not what I signed up when I bought this house. And so I want to see, if we can get frosted windows on anything that's looking over people's backyards. And also I want to talk about the fences, the gates, seeing if we can get security gates at either side to help with traffic and make sure that it's residents only and noise. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla. The next person to speak is Cynthia Rose and Robert Olson. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, firstly, I'd like to say that we've lived here for 25 years and my work is heartbroken to hear this development. Secondly, the family definitely need a group meeting we can all attend. I think everybody's expressed that desire. I believe the gentleman, if you speak, just mentioned something about a study. I'd like to know if there's been a study done on the effects of property values that something like this. And ask also, will we be compensated? Values? A lot of us have worked to afford. Parking.
I'm sorry, Robert, your connection is really breaking up. Can you repeat yourself?
Sure. Yes, so I was curious to know if a study has been done on the effects of property values of a development like this. And I'd like to know if, as homeowners, we will be compensated for any loss in property values. The parking issue, there's going to be people parking on the streets. It's completely unacceptable that there's not at least 2 spots per unit, and also having visitor spots in the development, because these people will be getting visitors. And then I work from home, so the noise of the 2 years worth of construction, I don't think that's been taken into consideration. A lot of people work from home now, and I don't know if I was heard, if you said I was breaking up, but we definitely need to have a meeting with Pam Foley where all of us can attend. And you want to add anything more?
Yeah, just the answer is yes, ma'am. And so that we can all attend in person, all of the neighbors here on Kirby and Eldon and these streets. Thank you.
So I heard you wanted an in-person meeting with Pam Foley.
Yes.
Yes, that we can all attend.
Yeah, thank you. And we have your contact information. You've all signed up for this Zoom meeting. And so we can set something up, figure out a location where we can all meet in person. That we'll work on that.
All right, thank you. The next person to speak is Pavel. You've been unmuted. Please unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I'm actually, my name is Irina. I'm calling with my husband Pavel. We live in the neighborhood. Like many others have expressed, we have very big concerns about such a big residential / commercial property, being built right in the backyards of our home. This is a complete violation of our privacy. I mean, a lot of the statements that people have said, we 100% echo and support. There was a lot of talk about how, this is being built for families with, multiple children. However, it sounds like there's also a lot of studios. I think that, we're all in support of additional housing being built, but I think you have to take into consideration how this directly affects the people that live in this community. If you're talking about, building more for families, why not focus on building a 2 or maximum 3-story building that has 2 or 3 bedroom units that do support, the nurses, like you said, and, the teachers, the clerks that live in the community. 6, stories is just absolutely atrocious. not to mention the traffic and the congestion that this is going to cause. In addition, as everyone has already said, 260 units, only 160 parking spots. Is there going to be potentially, permit parking required so that the people that actually, pay a premium, who have saved up a lot to live in this really beautiful neighborhood, now are having a violation of privacy? Is there going to be something to actually allow the people that live here to focus on a higher, like a better way of better parking, because we also have family and friends and visitors that come. I don't know if I'm doing myself justice here, so I don't know. Do you want to add in or? No. But just is there going to be a requirement for permit parking so that there isn't overflow into our neighborhoods, and that the people that live here in the neighborhoods now should have the first priority for what we're actually paying for? Sorry for going over, but thank you for the time.
All right, thank you. See, the next person to talk is Mike, lowercase m. You've been unmuted. Please unmute yourself.
Hello, good evening. Yeah, like I said, my name is Mike. I have a couple of concerns. One is I'm kind of kitty corner to the development in Campbell. My question is, who is going to service this large development? So right now, as San Jose is doing, is building large developments on the border of their jurisdiction. So no services from the city can serve those developments. So what happens is you have an auto aid agreement, which means fire and services have to come from a different jurisdiction to serve them, which really isn't fair for those people paying for it in a different jurisdiction. It also decreases the service level for us. But as many other people said, so I'd like to find out how, if San Jose is going to build another fire station or not. I don't think they are. Parking, I think people conflate the issue of EVs with not owning cars. There's just a different way of propelling a car. People will still need cars to drive to their jobs or the light rail station. And then just to address the lack of thoughtfulness on the design. I mean, I think I could go to Google and spend 15 minutes and draw a square box and put it in a residential neighborhood. I think the developer failed to come out to the community to address the flavor and feel of it and try to work with us to make it fit into the neighborhood. And then a disingenuous statement by the developer saying that he's just following the laws when the developer lobbies have changed the laws to eliminate parking so that to get increased profits, and now just simply saying that, oh, I'm just following the law. So this is the wrong project in the wrong area. If you have any concerns, contact your state representatives. They're the ones that passed all these laws, and they need to hear from us to change them before it's too late. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike.
I'll just, if I could just respond, the development interest had nothing to do with the removal of parking requirements in the city. That was environmental advocacy and people concerned about climate change that advocated for eliminating parking requirements to reduce the reliance on automobiles. So that had nothing to do with developers' interest whatsoever.
Thank you, Eric. The next person to talk is Ida Goldfarb. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself.
Hi, this is Ida's husband. I'm obviously using her computer, but I agree with everyone who has said something this evening. PD, that was an amazing way to go about it. I do appreciate the support on that end. While I completely disagree with this entire project, the height of it is just absolutely unacceptable. If you're going to do something of this sort, the parking spaces need to match the residences at bare minimum. As far as traffic goes, it is already a very difficult area for traffic. I live on Schrader, Horace, Eldon, they're all cut throughs from Union and Bascom for people passing through, whether it be going to their job or trying to get to leave. So the traffic would absolutely be terrible, and people cutting through, and not even cutting through, the speeding with children on the street. I play outside consistently with my children riding bikes. I'm always available or always on watch to see who is speeding on the street, and it's unacceptable for something this size to be put in this type of an area. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person to talk is Darty Panchal. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you so much for giving me opportunity to express. I agree with and echo everything that everyone has said. My concern was around obviously how tall the build, like how many stories it's going to be. 3 is absolutely appropriate. And the other question I had was security. Is there going to be, and I think Carla mentioned earlier, is there going to be security that it's only going to be people who are going to be staying there to make sure that they're the only ones allowed there? Next question is, I'm sorry if I've missed this, when is this development happening? What is the expected timeline on this? And what are the next steps? I mean, we've raised our concerns, but what happens after this meeting?
Okay, thank you.
I'll answer the construction question. So if the project is approved in the coming months, then construction would start next year. And as we already mentioned, the duration of the construction is about 2 years.
Yeah, no, maybe I can just speak to the review process too. So, it's entirely dependent on the applicant resubmitting. We've reviewed 1 round of review for this project. Extensive comments provided from various departments. So the applicant will need to resubmit, potentially resubmit again, in order to comply with all of the city's requirements. And in addition to that, the environmental review needs to take place as well as the transportation analysis. So that's still all ongoing. We don't have a firm time for any hearings or anything like that yet. We're still very early on in the process.
Okay, thank you, Eric and Alec. The next person to speak is Sean Harper. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm also a resident of the Dry Creek neighborhood, and I'm just pretty appalled with the number of large, tall, several-story developments that are going to be going in apparently in our neighborhood over the next few years. It's one by one, it's just going to be undercutting the quality of life in the community for the people that have lived here for lots of years. We moved here 18 years ago and decided to make this our place to raise our kids at. Every day we walk our kids to school along that complex, down Eldon Drive to the elementary school down the street. And every time we pass by there, I tell my kids, this is the most dangerous intersection in the area by far. And the addition of all this extra traffic and all these extra cars, not to mention the ones that don't even have parking spaces, is going to make it even more dangerous for the community. It does nothing, absolutely nothing for the people that already live here. Zero. It takes away retail space that we use and adds an eyesore that's just far too tall. I feel even worse for the people that live on Eldon or the homes back that are going to be back behind there. Eldon is already a cut through street with high traffic. Like I said, we walk through there every morning at 8 o'clock as we take our kids to school, and we just have to shepherd them. There's no sidewalks. There's just going to be so much more traffic. So I would really, really, really encourage the city to find a much more appropriate place for this, somewhere that already has access to more public transportation. The idea of people pulling into that complex off of Union is just ridiculous if you've ever even been by there. I mean, I just drove by it 20 minutes ago, and as I was listening to this, and You just have to go by there to see it. It makes zero sense whatsoever. So please reduce the size. We need places for people that that work in this area to live, but this just isn't the scale that we need for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Okay, the next person to speak is Haley. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm going to reiterate a lot of what my fellow neighborhood people have already mentioned, but 6 stories is utterly ridiculous. As somebody who lives or will live extremely close to this structure being built, it's an extreme invasion of privacy. My husband and I bought this home because of the privacy and having, 5 stories worth of people staring right into our yard is really unnerving. For the parking situation, there's already not enough parking for the people who live on Eldon Drive. The people who live across the street in Craig Gardens take up all of our street parking, so we can't even have guests over to park. So thinking about you're not allowing nearly enough parking spaces, it's only going to get even worse. The traffic now is going to be even further down on Eldon Drive. The person who just spoke before me mentioned traffic on this street with people flying through, kids walking to and from school, elderly people trying to cross the street. If you have an entrance on Eldon Drive, that's going to be an extremely dangerous situation. People get hit on this intersection almost every day. And it's going to be an extreme safety issue. Also, I mean, you guys keep saying that you're making all these concessions for us. You're giving us parking when you don't have to. You're making extra setbacks when, the minimums or whatever. That's not good enough. Changes need to be made. And I hope that you're truly listening to everything that all of your community members have been saying. I don't know how many times you need to hear the same comments over and over again, but I really hope that you take them into consideration and make the necessary changes. Thank you.
Okay, I think that was the last person who has not spoken yet. All we have our hands raised to people who have already spoken once. Alec, I'll pass it back over to you if you want to hear again from those people or if you want to continue.
Yeah, Laura, I think we're already well over time. I would maybe just ask Eric or Councilmember Foley if you have any, closing thoughts, and then I'll close it out.
Oh, we have one more hand. I'm sorry. Oops. No, he lowered his hand. Sorry. Go ahead.
I'll close it up, and then maybe if Eric wants to say anything. I truly appreciate everyone taking their time this evening to share their thoughts and concerns with me and with the developer. This is not a city project. This is a developer is purchased or is in the process of purchasing a property to develop for affordable housing. The state has given us strict requirements on the number of housing units we're supposed to be building. And the right or wrong, that's what the state has dictated to us, and the numbers are high. I'm not saying that that's a right thing, and I'm not saying that I agree with them. I have listened and made comments about all of your concerns. I will meet with Kyle, who's my staff person on this call, and we're going to talk about traffic a little bit already that goes down Eldon. But of course, with the development, more traffic will occur, but it sounds like you have traffic problems already that we should be addressing and discussing. So we're going to get together and talk about that. I do want to leave you with this, that we will have an in-person meeting. I'm not sure how soon we will arrange it, but we will have an in-person meeting and give you plenty of time to attend, to have knowledge about it and attend it. And I'm assuming that an evening meeting is best. So we'll have to coordinate it with staff so we can get some staff there as well. With that, again, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. I have like 10 pages of notes, and I just want you to know I've listened and heard everything that you've said. Thank you.
on behalf of the development team, we'd just like to thank the community for their time to give their input, and thank city staff and Councilmember Foley and her staff for the time tonight. We've listened carefully, and we especially like suggestions and ideas about specific design elements that can make the project better. So we appreciate those comments. Thank you.
And I will just echo that as well. I want to thank everybody. I'm sorry, I have somebody vacuuming right next to me in the office, but thank you, everybody. And similar to what Councilmember Foley said, I'm absolutely open to meeting with anybody. Call me, you can email me. I'm always around. And Councilmember Foley, whenever you have your in-person meeting, I'd be happy to attend as well. And with that, I'll adjourn the meeting. I'm going to leave this slide up. You guys can take down my contact info. I put news, contact info as well, in case you have any questions on the environmental review process. And with that, everybody have a very good night, and thank you so much for staying late with us. Thanks.